My family members and we love to go on road trips together. And because some of my family members live in a remote area with poor cell service, we often listen to satellite radio as we're touring around. Although no formal procedures have been instituted for music selection, it's generally accepted that the driver has control of the radio, who may, at their sole discretion, cede it to the front passenger. We all take turns driving because sometimes we're nice like that, and thus our background musical atmosphere is rich and diverse. My mother might listen to classic rock or movie scores, my sister might choose lo-fi or video game soundtracks, I might listen to smooth jazz or EDM, and my brother might choose heavy metal, or when he's being an absolute troll, Broadway show tunes. Why is my brother being a troll when he listens to Broadway tunes? Because we all suspect, despite his claims to the contrary, that he doesn't actually like it. He just wants to revel in our misery. This is the nature of trolling. It seeks to create low-level aggravation without causing any significant harm, for no benefit other than the malign pleasure of the perpetrator. And so it is also the case when I decided to title this article, Why Justice is Wrong. Of course, I don't actually believe justice is wrong. I'm not a psychopath. But some primordial part of me delights in how you might read that title and get a little bit flustered. That said, while I do believe in fairness and preventing harm to others, there is an aspect of justice, as it's practiced modernly and has been practiced throughout human history, that I do truly consider to be wrong. To dissect this idea further, let's approach justice from the perspective of 5 punishment philosophies: retribution, deterrence, rehabilitation, incapacitation, and restoration. When I say that justice is wrong, I'm referring specifically to retribution. That is, when we punish someone for a crime solely because they have caused harm and deserve to be harmed in return. Conversely, the other 4 punishment philosophies have differing aims. Deterrence seeks to discourage individuals from committing crimes. Rehabilitation seeks to turn criminals into law-abiding citizens who are fit to be released back into the world without restriction. Incapacitation prevents criminals from causing further harm, and restoration intends to repair the damage caused by the crime to whatever degree is possible. Now, there are a lot of caveats to my claim that retribution specifically is wrong. First, no justice system in the modern world, to my knowledge, operates through retribution alone. If I steal from someone but am caught by the police and the stolen items returned unharmed to their original owner, I might be fined. While this punishment might be retributive, it's also a deterrent. Undoubtedly, some of us refrain from theft not because it is morally wrong, but because we know we will be punished if we do. For other crimes, the perpetrator will be imprisoned or even put to death. Again, this is a deterrent to other would-be criminals, but it's also a form of incapacitation. A prisoner or dead person, for the most part, is unable to cause further harm to others. It's very possible that a world without retribution would be very similar to the world in which we live now, since preventing crime by incapacitating criminals and discouraging would-be criminals is still a valid and effective strategy. But there are some exceptions. For example, let's say I'm distracted by my phone while driving through town and I happen to pass by a police officer while doing so. In scenario A pedestrian is crossing the road in front of me, doesn't see me approaching, and gets hit and killed. In scenario B, set in a parallel universe, the pedestrian sees my reckless approach, dodges out of the way at the last second, and escapes unharmed. Now, in both scenarios, my action was the same: reckless driving and endangerment of others. It is only the result of my actions that differs between scenarios A and B, due to no fault of my own, I might add, because it was the awareness of the pedestrian to either get out of the way or not notice me and get hit. Now, in both scenarios A and B, the police officer observed my reckless driving. But should I be punished solely for endangering others? Or, in scenario A, because I actually hit and killed another person? Or both? If my punishment is more severe when the pedestrian is killed, then it's likely that our justice system is acting, at least in part, through retribution. Aside from some fringe cases where I might be legally forced to provide financial compensation, that is, restoration, to dependent family members of the victim, then leveling a greater punishment upon me in scenario A than in scenario B is purely retributive. Now, if you're concerned that a hefty punishment for manslaughter is necessary to deter others from reckless driving in scenario A because an innocent person was killed, also consider that in scenario B, the punishment might be minimal because no one was hurt, so I might not be adequately deterred from reckless driving until I accidentally hit and injure or kill someone. This is not ideal, but we need only focus on the intent of the punishment. The severity can be adjusted downstream as necessary. For example, if manslaughter were no more severely punished than reckless behavior that endangered the lives of others, we might simply make that reckless behavior punishable to a greater degree, effectively using punishment as a deterrent based on the potential outcome of the action rather than the final result. Retribution for its own sake is causing harm to another person, and I advocate for a world in which the unnecessary harm that we cause to others is minimized. While deterrence, incapacitation, restoration, and rehabilitation all seek to reduce harm, retribution is the outlier in that it aims only to cause it. Consider the famous case of Charles Whitman, who in 1966 killed his wife and mother and then later opened fire with a rifle on a university campus, killing many more. Investigation of the incident revealed that he had sought help for intrusive and violent compulsions, and an autopsy later revealed a brain tumor that could potentially have triggered his violent urges. While this is an extreme example of murder potentially brought on by illness, it is nonetheless an example of a category of crimes for which retribution would actually be directly harmful with no potential gain. Also consider crimes of passion, which may invoke a lesser punishment if said crime is committed when the perpetrator is emotionally distraught in comparison to premeditated events. As such, there is already some societal precedent for minimizing the role of retribution in legal justice. Lastly, let's think about the effect of retribution on the victims and survivors of a crime. While we may, at times, want to see harm done to those who harm us or those we care about, this outlook is difficult to justify morally. Even if a criminal deserves it, there is no virtue in wishing suffering upon them. There is perhaps value in wishing a criminal be restrained from causing further harm, wishing to see them rehabilitated, or even wishing to see them repair any damage that they've caused. But wishing to see them harmed only creates additional suffering. A world in which we don't wish for retribution is, in my opinion, a better world, and I look forward to a civilization in which we can love both our allies and our enemies.